Welcome to this edition of The Moral Agenda, where the faith community sets the moral agenda for the nation and the nations of the world, with Dr. Jessica Davis, the president of the Faith and Public Policy Institute. And now, here is your host, Dr. Jessica Davis.
Welcome to The Moral Agenda. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Davis, coming to you live from the Faith and Public Policy Institute, located in Princeton, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Today, I'm coming to you live from the national headquarters, located in Princeton, New Jersey. The Moral Agenda is where the faith community sets the moral agenda for the nation and the nations of the world. And so we're glad that you have decided to join us today on our weekly program. The mission of the Faith and Public Policy Institute is to educate the faith community on domestic and foreign policy issues. As we have been sharing over the last several weeks, we're focusing on eradicating poverty in America, and not only this nation, but the nations of the world as well. Because we know that we are interconnected. And because we now live in a global community as a result of technology and global and foreign policies, we're exporting and importing, and we're just connected in so many ways. As a result of that, we're called to a greater level of responsibility as the faith community. Not only should we be concerned about our local communities, our nations, but the nations of the world. And so the mission of the Faith and Public Policy Institute is not only to educate, but to bring to a greater level of awareness the fact that we are a global faith community, and because of that, we have a greater level of responsibility. I share all the time that the faith community is a sleeping giant, and it's time for us to wake up when it comes to domestic and foreign policy issues. And so we're focusing, we're committed to looking at poverty from a domestic and foreign policy perspective. And so today, I want to talk to you from a global perspective. I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to the nations of the world today. Specifically, we're going to look at our African brothers and sisters and look at what is taking place concerning poverty on the continent, and how the countries of Africa, their commitment and their mission to eradicate poverty as well. The hope today is that we will learn what's going on the continent of Africa. In addition to that, learning what's taking place, and there are some exciting things taking place. And not only that, what we can learn from it and how we can work together collectively to eradicate poverty in the nation and the nations of the world as well. But let me share with you, we have a 10-point poverty plan. And in addition to the poverty plan, we have created what we call poverty rating guides. Here in the United States of America, you may know from an organizational perspective, in terms of domestic and foreign policies, on the federal level, on the national level, we have the United States Congress. And we have made a decision here at the Faith and Public Policy Institute to rate our leadership, and to say to our leadership, we're looking at poverty from a 10-point perspective, and we're asking you to look at poverty from this perspective with us. And so in order to move forward and begin these constructive conversations, we have created this poverty rating guide to see and share with each of you what's taking place. And so let me just talk about our 10-point poverty plan, so you're clear about what the issues are, the policy areas are. Number one, advocating for children in poverty in America, including quality education. Number two, to decrease the unemployment rate with training programs, with placement for unskilled and low-skilled workers, including support of veterans. Number three, to increase the minimum wage to a living wage. Number four, to invest in parents with the Head Start program and workplace daycare. And we can talk about these policy areas in great detail right now because they're actually being impacted while we're speaking today. And so we're looking forward to holding our leadership accountable. There have been some negative impacts already on the Head Start program because of across the board budget cuts by our federal government. People have been dropped from the Head Start program. And we're looking right now, as of today, the latest information we have received on this week is that 60,000 young people will not have access to the Head Start, federally funded Head Start program. And so we need to speak out about it and speak out about our concerns because this impacts young people, and we know disproportionately young people are impacted by poverty in a great way. And so whatever we can do to support and bring and keep young people out of poverty and prepare them to move up in terms of upward mobility, programs like Head Start play a critical part in doing that. And so we're disturbed, greatly disturbed by the fact that the budget cuts have impacted such an important program in our nation. Next policy area, developing housing rehabilitation programs, including low-density public housing. Next, to end hunger and food insecurity, including new farming initiatives with urban and regional farming. And as we talk about Africa today, they have made some very important commitments in terms of food insecurity and ending hunger. And so we can actually learn from our African brothers and sisters today. And so I'm excited to share that information and their commitment and mission to end hunger in their nations. Next, to support programs for victims of predatory lenders, including the outcome of homelessness. As you know, across really the nation and the nations of the world, we went through a significant housing and mortgage crisis. And it had a global impact in terms of the financial aspect of it. And so we're saying, remember, this began in 2007, 2008 until now. And we're saying remember because people are still recovering. They're in a recovering phase as a result of the mortgage crisis in the nation. The next policy area is the major overhaul of the prison industrial complex. And there have been some policy discussions in terms of sentencing of men and women in the recent weeks. And so we're excited to hear that. But again, because of the impact our prison policies have had on a federal and state level, our communities have been negatively impacted and really impact the earning potential of our communities, of our families, and poverty has definitely been an outcome of our what we have done in terms of our prison or incarceration policies across the nation. Our next policy area is ending unfair personal and corporate tax breaks and concessions. And as you know, these policies have been, the implementation of new tax policies have been slow to move forward, and because of the self-interest of a number of our corporate and corporations in the nation. And so we need to hold our leadership accountable and say, what's going on? Why are you moving at such a snail's pace in terms of implementation? And so as we hold our nation accountable, faith community, because this is a poverty issue, we will see greater movement and greater implementation of policies that will help our community, empower our communities. And finally, strengthening the entitlement programs, including Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, supporting our nation. If we don't want to imagine, but imagine for a moment Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid being taken away or cut in a significant way. We would see a significant number by the millions of people entering poverty. So it's important as we look at these entitlement programs, the goal should be to strengthen these programs and not cut or get rid of. We have to pray, and not only pray, but speak out on these significant issues because of our mandate to help the poor. What's our mission? What's our motivation? Why should the faith community be concerned about these policy areas? Why should the faith community be concerned about poverty in the nation and the nations of the world? Well, let's turn to Scripture. And as I shared with you on last week, this particular passage is our motivation, is our reminder of what we're called to do as the faith community. And let me read it. It comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 34 through 40. And let me read it for you. Then shall the king say to them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we you were hungry, and fed you, were thirsty, and gave you drink? When saw we you a stranger, and took you in, or naked, and clothed you? Or when saw we you sick, or in prison, and came to you? And the king shall answer and say to them, Truly I say to you, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these my brothers, you have done it to me. Wow. This passage, this scripture reminds us that as we eradicate poverty in America, as we eradicate poverty in the nations of the world, we're not only impacting, we're not only doing this for and with men and women, boys and girls, but we're actually doing this unto God. And so we're motivated in such a powerful way in the faith community. And so the Institute is on a mission to prepare our faith communities, to empower, to provide a way of moving collectively, because we made a commitment with our mission to eradicate poverty in this nation. We made a conscious commitment to pick up a mantle that we believe was dropped in the land in 1968. And this mantle is the Poor People's Campaign by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He facilitated the Poor People's Campaign before he was assassinated. And we believe upon his assassination, this mantle, as other mantles, were dropped in the nation and have not successfully been picked up. And so the Faith and Public Policy Institute, we have made a commitment. The Board of Trustees, the Advisory Council, and myself, we have made a commitment to pick up this mantle and move it forward. And so our commitment is coming out of the fact that in this nation, the United States of America, since 1968, we're looking at 50 million men, women, boys, and girls living below the poverty line in the United States of America. And that translates into 16% of our population living below the poverty line in America. And we know that that's not acceptable. And we're calling on you, the faith community. Wake up, you're a sleeping giant, as I shared at the beginning of this program today. Wake up. We can do something. We can make an impact on poverty in this nation and the nations of the world. And as we make the impact, we're not only helping men, women, boys, and girls to move from below the poverty line in this nation, but we can make an impact worldwide. And so we're excited. We understand the seriousness of this commitment, but we're excited because we believe that the faith community can and will make a difference. So I'm calling on you today to stand up and say, I'm joining you to help eradicate poverty from a policy perspective. Why a policy perspective? Yes, many of our communities, and I'm a part of a number of initiatives. We feed the hungry. We clothe the ones that don't have proper clothing. We do a lot of outreach, as we describe it, in our faith communities across the nation and the nations of the world. But from a policy perspective, and those things are good and needed in our communities, and they minister and they reach communities, they reach individuals. But from a policy perspective, we're addressing systemic issues. And as we address systemic issues, we can make a generational impact. This will live beyond us. And so we have a responsibility as the faith community to address it from a systemic perspective as well. And so I invite you, and the only way we can do that is collectively. And so I'm calling on the faith communities, the faith and public policy, with the moral agenda. We're calling on your participation today to say, yes, I'm going to take a greater level of responsibility to educate myself. And as a result of educating myself, I know that I will be called to action. And so in doing that, I want to share with you our rating guide for the United States Senate. We're excited to have this guide, and the U.S. House of Representatives rating guide will be out shortly, and I look forward to sharing that guide with you very soon. Eradicating Poverty in America, the 113th Congressional Poverty Rating Guide, published by the Faith and Public Policy Institute. The wonderful thing about this guide, it goes state by state, senator by senator, based on the 10 policy areas I shared with you. We assess our leadership's activity, commitment to those 10 poverty policy areas, and we assess and we rate on a scale of A being the best, meaning that this person is leading conversations, discussions, policy and policy development, and implementing, not only discussing, but supporting legislation that will impact these 10 policy areas. From A being the best involved to F, not discussing, not talking about, not supporting or co-sponsoring or sponsoring legislation that will impact these 10 policy areas. I'm sad to say that our national average is a F. So our U.S. Senate is failing us in terms of those 10 policy areas. And so we educate you, we make you aware from state to state so you can see your senators. But there is also a call to action in the back of this poverty guide. And the call to action, we want you to, once you review where your senator stands, follow the steps in the call to action, and we can make an impact. We're excited about it. I'm excited to share with you. And in order for you to get a copy, we ask that you would give us a donation of $25 or more. And you can do it several different ways. You can call us, and the information will be on the screen for you. You can go to the website. You can mail it in. And as soon as we hear from you, we will send it right out to you to begin working together to make an impact. And we're excited about these rating guides. And as soon as the U.S. House of Representatives guide is available, I will definitely be sharing that with you. This is a 120-page rating guide. In the front of the guide, we also have our national poll. We have asked the question of the American people. What is your, do you approve or approval or disapprove of the work that's being done by our U.S. Congress, by our president, and by the church? And some very interesting results and comments, and that's located in the front of the rating guide. And so you'll see those national polls. And we're excited about the national polls as well. Again, send a donation of $25 or more in support of the Faith and Public Policy Institute, and we'll send this right out to you. In addition to that, we have Eradicate Poverty Sunday, and we invite the faith community to join us. And for more information about that, you can go to the website. We will also send you out some information about the Eradicate Poverty Sunday. So if your faith community wants to be a part of that, and we invite each and every faith community to join us with Eradicate Poverty Sunday, in which you will hand out, make available to your faith community the rating guides and talk about collective action. So again, we have picked up the mantle of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as we remember and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington that's taking place in this season of this program, and so we're reminded in new and fresh ways that the work is not yet done, but we have come a long way. But now we're called to a greater level of responsibility and accountability as we move forward. We're not only holding our leadership accountable, our U.S. Congress accountable, those who are responsible for important legislation that will impact the generations to come. But we have to hold ourselves accountable as well as the faith community. And so we're holding ourselves accountable. And so with God's help, we will pick up the mantle and continue the work in a constructive way. And this work will impact not only our communities now, but the generations to come. And so we're excited about that. We're committed to that. And our prayer today is that you will join us as we move forward as well. And so let me talk briefly about what's going on with our global community, with our brothers and sisters in Africa. According to the Huffington Post, extreme poverty in developing countries. Unfortunately, every 5 seconds, a child dies of hunger in this world. Even as we sit here today, as I sit here today sharing with you, many children have died during this particular program, and so faith community, we have to continue our work, and we have to take our work to the next level of implementation. At the same time, there are some exciting things going on. According to the Heifer International states that extreme poverty is down from 43% to 21%. And so we're excited to hear that. Their goal is to help reduce extreme poverty from 21% to 3% by 2013. And so we can join in these initiatives
Thank you for tuning into the weekly broadcast of The Moral Agenda with Dr. Jessica Davis. If you would like a full-length audio CD of this week's program, send a donation of $20 or more by going to www.themoralagenda.com or call 202-507-6373. The Moral Agenda with Dr. Jessica Davis has been paid for by the friends and partners of the Faith and Public Policy Institute and viewers like you in this area.